I accept the challenge, but please, John, I know I wouldn't like me and Omar to go looking for you, falling again like you did in Rome, you know. So we want to have proper fun and not worry about where's John, you know.
It's okay, Thanos. I'm gonna put an air tag on John so I know exactly where he is
Yeah.
at all times. So don't worry.
Yes, that's a good idea.
That actually is a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Sports Dentistry podcast. We're back again, Umar. Episode 4. We made it back from Las Vegas in one piece. I've got the ankle bracelet back on.
We're on a roll now. We're on a roll.
Yeah, so it was good. It was fantastic to hear Brian talk last week. It was a great story. You can hear the passion again, and it really shows you that you need to go out and put yourself out and get involved.
Yeah, I love the fact how he's so involved, though. You know, he was talking about how they would stitch one of the players up 75 stitches and he's back on the ice. I just love the way his storytelling was fantastic. I could listen to him talk all day. He was excellent.
Yeah, they have a great setup too in the ice hockey. There's a photo as well that the scene of the sports dentist that worked with LA, and he's stitching up the lip, and somebody else is working on the arm, somebody else is working on the leg to get the ice hockey player back out. So it is a very unique sport, and they work together, and you hear how he talks about the 5 of them from all different skill sets. That would be ice side. We're going to say pitch side there, but it's ice rink side, ice side.
Yeah.
During play.
But it's good because he said actually he got into it because of his orthopedic friend. So the connection he had at Boston. So again, it's about who you know and if you can try and get in there through the contacts that you already have. So for people who want to try and get into their local clubs, you might actually know the doctor or the radiologist or the physio or the nutritionist or the beautician or somebody who just is part of that club who you can contact and say, look, I want to get involved. Can you help me out here?
Yeah, definitely. So I had a bit of a dilemma this week. Found myself in a bit of a dilemma. So I was out doing, yeah. So I was out doing a few scanning of the Irish women's rugby team on Wednesday night. There's a few players that had a bit of dental work done and needed rescanned, and 1 or 2 players that were just new to the squad for the rest of the Six Nations. And before it went out, my better half had said, do you want me to put dinner on? So I was like, yeah, but I'll be home an hour or 2 late. And then sometimes when you go out to work with these teams, they offer you food afterwards because they were just about to eat it. And then the dilemma was, do I eat the food and then I'll not be able to eat that much later after my better half has sat and made me dinner? Or do I not eat the food and just go home? So that wasn't the dilemma that I had this week, Umar. What would you do in that situation?
Oh, that's a tricky situation. I would have to have food with the wife and then I'd have seconds after.
Well, no, it's the other way around because you're offered the food there just after you finish the scanning. So I was doing this on the way home from work.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So it's the other way around.
Well, what did you do? The listeners want to know.
I had both. Of course I did.
Yes, of course you did. Absolutely.
I wasn't going to say no. Whenever you get the offer and you're out with these teams, because the food some of these teams get is absolutely amazing, and that food was amazing. They were sitting out in the back of the hotel. It was overlooking a golf course. It was a lovely sunny evening. Great setting. Food was great. I wasn't going to turn it down. I was tempted. I said I'll only call in and get a coffee for the road, but then when I seen the spread of food, I was like, I'm going to have to get a plate here. So it was fantastic. And then, of course, you go home and you say, I'm starving. I haven't had anything to eat. And you have to sort of just push through and get another plate of food in you more. It was a struggle, but I got there in the end.
Absolutely. So I misunderstood what you said, obviously, because of your Irish accent. We've done it before. We've done scanning at the athletes' hotels and stuff, and the food, yeah, like you say, it's incredible, but you can't say no when you go home, even if you've got a full tummy. Actually, this week was a big week for me. I'll have you know. It was our 8th wedding anniversary on Wednesday. So I got up.
Good.
Yeah, went to the gym, came back home, girls were getting ready. My wife was like, happy 8th wedding anniversary. And I was like, yay. She's like, did you remember? I was like, yeah, definitely did remember. Card I am going to get. She had a card for me, very thoughtful, my wife. And then, I managed to get her one later on in the day. Happy days. Happy days.
I got a wee bit stuck this year a little bit too. Now, our 8th, we got married the same year. Our 8th's in July. But we were skiing over Valentine's Day, and we don't usually do Valentine's Day. So we went on the Tuesday, and Valentine's Day was on the Friday. And she had brought a card with her. And like, just pronounced this card on Valentine's Day. And there's me completely unprepared, not expecting anything, and not even local where I could go and get a card completely. So I must remember my wedding anniversary this year.
Oh,
Definitely don't want to get caught out.
No, definitely not. But surely it must be some sort of like Deliveroo or something that you could have just bought a card and got it delivered. The guy's cycling along and he's like, here's your your Valentine's card. Here's your Valentine's card. Yeah, bouquet of roses and stuff.
I'm not sure the facilities in that wee town. It wasn't Italy was there, but yeah, definitely. So, talking about food, you said you were looking forward to the food of the next guest, the location of the next guest.
Oh my goodness, yes. You cannot beat this food. I don't even know where to begin. Gyros, souvlaki. If that doesn't make your mouth water, then I don't know what will.
Well, I'll eat anything, so as I've just said. But yeah, no, Greek food. We're talking about Greek food here, and this is where our next guest is. He's coming from Athens, and anyone in the sports dentistry world will have heard of him, if not already met him. But Thanos Stamos is our next guest. Stamos. I know. I don't even know if I'm saying your name right these days. Umar. I'm getting there. It's not the 10th pod yet.
Yeah, I've given up now. Thanos Stamos, our good friend. Looking forward to hearing his story and his journey. Let's go for it.
Yeah, it's really interesting, especially when you hear how they set up the European Association for Sports Dentistry over a conversation he had with Sophie, who's based in France, and they were looking over the same player because the soccer player was based in Athens at the time, and they linked up on how they developed from that conversation into what the European Association for Sports Dentistry is today. It is a really great story, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So let's go. Hey everyone, save the date. The UK Sports Dentistry Association's second conference is happening on Friday the 12th of September at the Voco Hotel in Manchester. And guess what? It's not just about teeth. We're combining cutting-edge sports dentistry talks with the thrill of live sport. Right after the conference, we're heading to Emirates Old Trafford for the England versus South Africa T20 International. Expect a day packed with expert speakers, athlete Q&A sessions, and plenty of time for networking with dentists, sports pros, and athletes alike. Whether you're in dentistry or passionate about sport, this is a day you won't want to miss. Tickets are live now at sportsdentistryuk.com. Grab yours and join us for an unforgettable day. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome on this podcast is Dr. Thanos Stamos. Am I pronouncing your name right, Thanos?
Yeah, okay. That was fine.
That was fine. I'm not the greatest at English, even though it's my first language. A lot of people find it hard to understand. But for many in the sports dentistry world, they'll know who Thanos is. He's been instrumental for the development of sports dentistry in Europe. But this gives us a little bit of a chance to know you a little bit more, Thanos. So maybe start off with, why did you get into dentistry and how did you get into sports dentistry?
Well, first of all, thank you, John and Omar, for this basic invitation. It's a great pleasure to talk with you. I would like to say that most of the people know Thanos from the Marvel movies. Not a good character, but this is not the case in my case. So you pronounce the name quite well, Thanos Stamos. But I feel a little bit in a very difficult, not very difficult, but in a little difficult situation because I'm talking with two friends of mine. One has a British accent, the other one has an Irish accent. So, and I will have a Greek accent of English. So I think that will go very well.
And people will probably understand your English before they understand the part.
I'm not sure about your Irish. If everybody understands. Be aware that it's not only British that can listen to this podcast, right?
That's what we're here for, is to try and take this worldwide, Thanos. Delighted to have you on board as our first European. So let's go for it.
Yes. What was the question, John? The first question.
So, a little bit more about Thanos. Why did you get into dentistry? How did you get into sports? I don't know. Are you from Athens, or are you always based in Athens? Did you move to Athens? What's the Athens connection?
Well, I am from Athens, Greece. I did my studies abroad. I came back from my studies in 2004. I did, as everybody is doing here in Greece, military service for 1 year as a dentist. And then in 2006, I opened my dental clinic in Athens, north of Athens. And that was immediately when, by chance, I had the first athletes, football players. At that time, I knew an agent of football players, a friend of mine. So he introduced me to a few football players. What I understood from the first appointment is that I couldn't do much because that was difficult to do the treatments, that was difficult to do the diagnosis. The players were very busy with the trainings. I had a coach on the line and team physician telling me what to do, what not to do. But I immediately understood that we have a problem here, that we cannot perform our treatments the way we do with everybody. So a couple of years later, I started to search for the so-called sports dentistry. Came to my mind, and the truth is that I didn't find many people. And then a couple of years later, in 2010, I met with, just by accident, I met with Sophie Cadamessa from France. She used to be the dentist of Paris Saint-Germain and the national team of France. And we had a common patient who was playing here in Athens at that time. And then we got to know each other, and she had the same problem like me, what to do and what to do the best of our treatments for the players. We need to adjust, we need to change a lot of things. And of course, our biggest problem was the networking and to find other dentists with the similar problems. And this is how we slowly started with Sophie to look up at the other dentists and to see what we can do about that. The rest is history. 3 years later, we created the EFOSD, the European Association for Sports Dentistry, with other dentists in both Greece and France. And very, very fast, more dentists joined us. John, I met John later on, one of the first sport dentists that I met in Europe. And here we are now. It's a beautiful story.
So I think you went into a little bit about why the European Association for Sports Dentistry formed by you and Sophie having a chat about a mutual athlete you were looking after. So,
yes.
So you knew one of the agents. This is what I'm interested in. So this is how you got involved. You kind of knew one of the agents and got involved. So am I right? Soccer would be, or as you like to call football, would be the number one sport in Greece and Athens. Is that the main sport? You talk about the players. It was a soccer player you were treating. Is that the main sport that tends to be in Athens?
Yeah, the most popular sport in Athens and in Greece is football or soccer.
And which team do you support?
What team I support?
Yeah,
I cannot say online on air.
I've heard it's a different team than you actually provide sports dentistry support to. Is that?
This is rumors, but the fact is that as a doctor, I support no team. I support just my patient. So here's your diplomatic answer, John.
That is a good answer, Thanos. He almost threw you under the bus there. What a horrible man.
There's some concern. There's been some concerns being raised that you're in there to help your own team be better by maybe hindering some of your rivals. Is there any truth in that conspiracy?
You're looking for more diplomatic answer, John, and here's the bus coming for you. Here's the bus coming for you. Well, listen, it's true what I knew already, and I found out also through my practice and being as a dentist, is that football, as we call it in Greece and everywhere, is a very passionate sport. Not only football, basketball, rugby, everything. So sports is passion. So everybody, we have a saying in Greek, is that through your life, you can change everything. You can change religion, you can change, let's say, everything, political views through your life. But one thing you cannot change is a team. This is true. So The other thing is that my involvement with sports as a sports dentist gave me the opportunity to understand that within the teams and the players and the people who are involved with the teams, there is actually no rivalry as we know as fans. They are top professional players. They are friends among different teams. Imagine a player playing for Manchester City being very close friend with the player in Manchester United. So there is no such a rivalry. And the third thing is that, as I said at the beginning, and this is not funny for fun now, is that when you have a patient at your office, you don't look at what the team he's playing, what he believes or where he comes from. You want the best outcome of your treatment, and you want him to be fit to go back to work, whether it's a manager working in an office or a football player playing on the pitch. Are you happy, John? No?
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy. That's
Good.
diplomatic. Well, I do want to ask another question. So we spoke a lot recently in our first two pods about rugby. Now rugby's slightly different, where the players don't tend to transfer, don't tend to move clubs as much as, say, soccer players or football players. How have you found that when you're working and supporting teams? Do you find that a challenge where you may only have a short window with some players and you don't actually know how long they'll be at the club that you can support them? Is that something that you have found a challenge at times, or how's that been?
I believe this is the biggest challenge, the time. Because you know that they're busy, they need to practice tomorrow morning, they need to travel after tomorrow, and then they need to get back, they need to do their rehabilitation after the match. Not to mention the psychological impact, because players are having a very increased number of games, not only in football, but in all sports now. So, and of course, the problem is that the players are moving constantly from team to team, country to country, continent to continent. So it's very difficult to follow up. I have an example of a player that we resumed the treatments just the day that he was leaving for his national team preparation for the World Cup. We're talking about a lot of treatments. I was never so stressed in my life than this period of time. And I told him when he left my office, I said, listen, any problem you have, anything, anytime, you just give me a call, wherever you are. And then he gave me the answer, don't worry, doctor, I'm going to send you my private plane to pick you up and bring you in, I don't know, in India, where we're going to do the preparation, or in Bangladesh. I was like, okay. So you do have the time issue here. Yeah, you do have the time pressure.
So he went to China or Saudi Arabia if he has a private plane to fly you out. Was that where he transferred to?
No, actually,
the big money
go.
transfer. They didn't go through.
I didn't go. No, nothing happened, fortunately. But I did ask him after, he went to the World Cup. And then I text him, because we became friends. Eventually, we were going out for dinner together. So I text him. I said, I want my commission from your transfer. I want my commission for your transfer. So yeah, we need to work under tremendous pressure. And this is something we learn from sports. We learn this pressure from the athletes themselves. And we learn this pressure from the sports physician and the sports medical team who is working around the players. There is no time, as I said at the beginning, no time for diagnosis, no time for treatment. The player needs to be 100% fit. What we call the return to play needs to be respected and go back on the pitch as soon as possible, healthy.
You're 100% right, Thanos. When it comes to trying to treat these players who are going to be going away, whether it is for tournaments or they're going to big competitions and you're not going to have direct access to them, you have to get them ready to play, as you said. I feel that when I'm getting messages, it's more often than not on the eve of a big event happening. I said this previously, that you're always on call. Your phone's always going off from a doctor, from a physio. This player has had this happen to them. Can you help out? And then you have to try and squeeze them in. So the time constraints and the pressure is definitely there. And that's something that we as sports dentists have to factor in when it comes to treating athletes, making sure that we are available. But the whole point of this podcast is being able to create that network, not just within UK, where John and I are based, but within Europe where you're based, and with our other colleagues who are based all around the world, you can pick up a phone, send a WhatsApp and say, look, here's the clinical records, here's the X-ray, this is the treatment that we've done, and this is how you can take that case further. I think that's the beauty of being able to provide this platform for people like yourself to say that, okay, well, actually, I know there's somebody in Greece who needs to see this player. I can send Thanos a message, and here's the X-rays, here's the treatment plan, here's what we did. Could you please just get them out of pain or whatever it is? So that's the beauty of it. And I think that's why John and I kind of came together and said we need to have that network of people around us, that we have the confidence that they have the training necessary to be able to treat this player to get them whatever it is the issue is at that time.
That's an excellent point, Omar. Well, EF4SD has developed, and the sport industry overall, not only EF4SD, has developed worldwide so much over the last years. And one of the projects that we are ready and we will do over the next months is to create a more, not sustainable, but a more organized network internationally, whether it's EF4SD or the academy in the United States, wherever in the world, whoever is a sport dentist or is dealing with athletes. And this is a very ambitious plan. So that, and I know there are dentists that will listen to this podcast from different countries around the world. And this is an ambitious project that we are optimistic that we're going to complete over the next months. If I have a player coming from Paraguay, for example, I know that I have a dentist there who probably has his dental records or medical records. So this is very important. And the first issue, what you mentioned, is that as doctors, we are on call all the time. But if we are sport dentists, we are 2 times on call. When I first met my wife, she knew that I'm a dentist, and I told her that, it might be that I have some emergencies, and she was fine with that. And then I told her, but I'm a sports dentist as well. So you might see multiple emergencies, no matter what day or time. And I'm very happy, actually. She hasn't divorced me yet for that. So, but you can see
it is one of the challenges of being a sports dentist, honest.
Chances to be divorced?
It is. Yeah, divorce is one of the challenges of being a sports dentist.
No. Actually, no. It's not a challenge anymore. I will explain you why. Because you might find yourself jumping from the couch Sunday night at 9:00 when you're watching a very nice movie on the Netflix. Go to your clinic because there is a football player who was injured 2-3 hours before. Okay. Then, your wife will not be very, very happy with that. But next time that the football player will come at your office just to finish the treatment and make, the necessary pictures and everything, your wife will be very, very happy to meet him. So there is a balance.
But Thanos, how many shots of Uzu have you had by that point?
Good question.
we touched on transfers, players moving and stuff. We know when a club are looking to take a player in, they will do a medical. Has there been any developments that you've seen where a part of that there is a dental aspect?
Unfortunately, no. It's I know clubs in Greece and in other countries that they do dental examination as part of the pre-season screening, medical screening of the players. But when a player is transferred from one team to another, to my knowledge, there are very, very few. This is a rare exception of a club examining the oral cavity. And this is something that we need to work on that.
And for example, more and more dentists are getting involved with clubs and doing this pre-season screening. Is there a way of that being transferred with the player as well? If a player goes to another club, I presume that their medical records are sent. Is there any record from dental being sent, or has it just not developed enough yet? Whereas it's becoming part of that player's journey where if they move club, their medical stuff will come, but also any dental that may have been carried out through the club goes with them.
To be honest, I don't know the answer to this question, but I do know that sports dentists who screen players within a team, They feel, and I'm talking from personal experience, I'm filling the dental screening form of the players every season in 3 different teams in the summer. Then this dental screening is going into their medical file. And I know that when the player is leaving and going to another team, the medical file follows him, so his dental screening as well. So if more dentists are doing this, I think we're gonna reach a point where we have a more complete. And just one notice here. I heard and I read reports about players not transferred from one team to another because of oral health issue. If you want my opinion, my sincere opinion is that doing oral screening is not for prohibiting a player move from one club to another, because apart from all the difficulties we have as sports dentists and the difficulties that can occur and the problems can occur from oral cavity, oral health issues can be solved in much faster and easier way than a ligament or a tendon or any muscular problem that the player must have. So I understand that the player didn't transfer from one team to another because he had a problem with his cruciate ligament. Yes, I understand that. But I don't understand why he was not transferred, even though he was found in a very bad condition in his oral cavity. All these issues can be solved in a very fast period of time and with no problems for the player. So this is another reason why we need the pre-season dental screening and why we need the sports physicians to understand that we're doing this to help the players and the clubs, of course.
So you know of an example where a player was denied a transfer because of his oral health, or was it just part of the reason?
I have read an article about, I don't remember the name of the player. It's a well-known player who was supposed to transfer in Italy from another club, and he was denied. He's a big player with a huge contract. He was denied his transfer because of his oral health. But just again, to be very, very honest, I find this not very smart to deny a player and move from one club to another just because he might have the worst oral health. You name it. If this player will have at the proper time the proper treatments, he can transfer without the problem. We're not talking about, as I said, we're not talking about myoskeletal injuries that can be really serious over the course of his career. We're talking about oral health, which can be very, very serious, by the way. But if you manage to control it and to treat it on time, then there's no problem. And this is what this is one of the messages we try to disseminate over the medical community.
Well, that's the education part of it that you're talking about, isn't it? It's going to be educating our medical colleagues about the oral cavity and about how things can heal very fast. The mouth is such a forgiving place. Things can heal so quickly, and it's amazing to see when you're doing it in clinical practice just how things can really heal. So it's a bit unfortunate for that player to have not had the transfer. For screening, what does that look like to you? So for you to do pre-screening, what does that entail?
The pre-screening for me is the goal is you have two goals. The first goal is to gather the maximum of information about the condition and the function of of stomatognatic system, as I like to say. And the second is to try to manage the whole team, because you don't just have one player. You have a team of 20, 25, 30 players. Especially at the beginning of the season, the number of the players is much higher than during the season. So you need to screen all of them. And then you need to do the proper management so that you understand what is your urgent treatments you need to do, when you need to do. And of course, your goal is when the season starts, the players to be fit in the oral cavity. You cannot have this if you don't have the support of the players themselves. And of course, if you don't have the cooperation with the team physician, if the team physician do not understand the necessity of doing this, then we have a problem. But I think most of the sports dentists who are working with the teams, the first thing they try to develop is a good cooperation with the sports physician.
I've done screening in the past where you're in this little physio room and you've got your loops on and you're trying to transcribe and talking to a microphone about this patient because it's hard to remember everything. But we've just recently started using scanners, intraoral scanners, where you can scan the player, and if you get quick at it and you've got a good scanner, you can do a full mouth within 5, 6, 7 minutes, that acts as a record. Yes, you want to take X-rays and all that sort of stuff, but maybe when you're at the ground or at the training ground, you've not got that access. But players can see their teeth right away in 3D, and you don't even need to say anything. You can just show them hole here, gum, swollen gum here. Like, this is what's going on, and you don't really need to explain anything. And I'm thinking in my head, if we can get into a habit where we can screen players by scanning them, that takes away a lot of the question marks in terms of, because after you've done 5 or 6, 7 players without a scanner, you're thinking, oh, what did that player have? What was the upper left 6? What was the lower right 5? But actually, if you've got a scan for every player, then that also tells you that if you scan them again the year later, what the difference is. Have they been looking after their oral health? Has caries progressed? Is there anything obvious else going on? But also you can send that STL file to the other sports dentists if they move to another team. So that's why I was asking you about screening, but how you do it. I think going forward, scanning is going to be absolutely paramount. And actually, even the doctor can do it, or the physio can do it. You don't need to be dentally trained to do a scan.
Absolutely. Yes. I don't use a scan, but yes, the scan or as any other technology we're using in our offices now as dentists, they can help us diagnose much faster and even treat much faster. So it's true that when you're going to the dental screening is almost never taking place in a dental clinic. I need to go to the training ground at the doctor's office and do the screening. And you cannot do this alone. You need to have at least one assistant so that you can record as much as you can. Scan, I've been using in the past photos because this can be, So this is, you do in a very limited time, you need to do the maximum. But it is important for the player to understand, of course, if he sees a picture, you don't need to explain much. And of course, you have the chance within 5 minutes to motivate him and tell him that, listen, you have a huge abscess. Why you want to miss your training during the season and call me in the midnight and miss the game? And so this is what motivates the players. Another thing that motivates the players is what I'm trying to do always in the teams that I'm screening before the season is to have a little talk with them all together as a team. 5-10 minutes before the screening and explain to them that I'm not here to drill all your teeth and to do the extractions and have all these horror movies going on. No, I'm here just to see if you have an issue and to solve this the best way possible. The other thing I try to explain them that the same way because we're talking about professional players, they taking care of what they eat, when they eat, they are looking for the perfect time of sleep and wake up. So they are professional players. So why to neglect their oral health? And I think all the athletes, especially the athletes that are at the high level and they taking care of everything, all the details in their body, they understand that.
Yeah, scanning's absolutely fantastic to help with the screening.
Yeah.
And what as you said, Thanos, photos as well, if you haven't got access to a scanner, the intraoral camera or even your iPhone.
Simple photo can do the work.
Showing them as several photos. I found it even just for putting together a wee report back to the medical team, just adding the photos in to support what you're saying is a fantastic way to support it. But scanning's fantastic, and I think it's the future. I couldn't do without my scanner. Particularly, we're doing a lot of scanning now. It's not so much in soccer, but in rugby, we're doing a lot of scanning now for the new instrumented mouth guards that the elite players are mandated to wear. So it seems to be something we're using a lot more regularly. Just from your experience then from screening of the soccer/football players, is there any trends that you're noticing? Is there anything that's common? Or is there, I'm sure there's lots of different players from different backgrounds, different countries. Is there something that sticks out in your head as a trend that you expect to see from people coming from certain areas? Or do you expect to see because they come through that sports players pathway? Is there any sort of trends that you've noticed over the years in soccer?
Mm-hmm. One thing I noticed that there is no geographical differentiation or background differentiation among the players. I noticed the same incidence in caries and periodontal disease in the South American players than in Asian players playing in India or Middle East. almost similar. I have examined hundreds, if not thousands of players. So I like statistics. I haven't noticed any differentiation from geographical point of view, but I did notice very high incidence if I compare with my, let's say, other patients at the office, higher incidence in periodontal disease, even from much younger players, starting from 17, 18 years old. Definitely higher incidence in dental caries. And something that also is characterized by high incidence is the attrition. So all these basic parameters of pathologies in oral cavity is found in much higher incidence in football players. And even younger age, if you consider that we're talking about football players, it means they are between 17, 18 years old to 34, 35 years old. We're talking about very young people here. So if you, sometimes I'm wondering, like you see a panoramic X-ray and you give it to somebody, somebody would say that, it doesn't correspond to a young individual. This panoramic X-ray, it would correspond, let's say, to somebody maybe older.
Why do you think
Very
that
good.
is?
Sorry?
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that these athletes have a higher incidence? What do you think from your experience?
The first reason is that they were never examined in the oral cavity. They start as young players in the academies, and this is very important. What we should do, the sport dentist, examine the academies from under 15, under 17, under 19 years old. They never examined in the teeth. So if you combine this with a hard exercise and their diet plus the stress, then of course you have the perfect storm in the oral cavity. And it's true that then they go into the first team as a professional players, these problems, are getting worse. One of the things asking all the time when a team is asking me to screen the professional team, I'm always asking to examine also the academy. And to be honest, I'm doing this for free. I'm examining all the kids in the academies, and there you find a very high incidence as well of these pathologies.
So that's maybe a focus where we should be looking at, is trying to make the changes at an earlier stage.
Yeah.
Have you any suggestions about how us as sports dentists can go about that? Is it about us to getting together as a group and trying to do some sort of campaign, or how do you feel would be the best approach to start tackling this at a younger age?
I think we should get more involved as sports dentists and associations. And speaking about the EFORSD, we should this is one of the things we should focus more in the near future, is the young athletes in the academies. Long term, we can improve considerably the health of the oral health of the professional athletes in any sport. One simple way is, and I know there will be a lot of dentists that will listen to this podcast from many different countries. One simple way is of course, it is a challenge to screen and treat a professional team, but do not forget about the academies. Do it as I said, as a volunteer examination. So I think if we examine the same amount of teams in the academies as we do in the professional teams, the players will suffer less problems.
There's a lot of concern more than anything else, maybe because of the lack of knowledge around it. But there seems to be a quite habit between soccer players to use snus. Have you noticed this, or have you noticed this to be a theme?
No, more and more soccer players, they use snus.
Oh, do they use snus when they're playing, or is it just when do they use it?
Not when they're playing. Not when they're playing. But speaking also with other colleagues of mine, it is well known, secret, let's say, that more and more players, they're using snus. And here's the tricky part about the snus is that it is tobacco, right? So, but you don't need to light cigarette. It's undetectable. It doesn't make any, it passes undetectable. It's very easy to use. And I think the players are not aware about the problems that they might have, not only in the oral cavity, but in general. And I think this is an issue that my impression is that world sports federations soon they will start to think about it and take actions about that.
And when do they use them? So they don't use them when they're playing. Do they use them before they go out? I have a story from Rome. I'm not sure if Thanos, you didn't maybe hear that I had a weekend with my school friends in Rome to watch Italy play Ireland.
Yeah.
But the night before the match, we were in a bar and there was a Danish lad there and he kept on putting this packet of thing between his gums. I was like, I just wonder, is that snus? Because I had never really seen it. So I had a conversation with him. He was from Denmark. He said it was very, very common that just they would have used it in school. Just they would have used it in high school and it was quite common for them to use it. And then solely for research purposes, I asked him, could I try? So he gave me one of the packets and I put it against the gum and we were having a conversation. So first of all, I felt it burn a little bit. And then I got a little bit of a high. But then I felt really sick and had to go to the toilet. And I vomited everywhere. So I came out and I had a glass of water. And another Irish colleague was there and he says, I have seen what happened to you. Your blood pressure dropped because you're not used to having nicotine. And that's what happened to you. So it made me think, what's the benefit? Is it more just a sociable thing with them? Or are they using it as an athletic benefit?
They're using it as an athletic benefit. And we need to see the snooze case in a much broader perspective. The snooze, as I said, it passes undetectable and it gives some short-term benefits to the player, and not only to the player, but we're talking about young athletes, young people now. In Greece, and I think in many countries as well, you see young kids in the high school using snooze. I can tell you, like couple of months ago, my daughter came to me. She's 14 years old, and she asked me, "You know what? You know this snooze?" I said, "Yeah, I know the snooze." I said, "Why? Did you use it?" She said, "No." I believe her. She didn't lie to me. And I said, "Why?" "Because there's some kids at school that are using snooze." I said, "Listen, we talked about all this issue about smoking, etc., but stay away from this." And then a week later, she came and she said, "You know what? One friend of mine at school, she was transferred to the hospital today because she had so many snooze that she started vomiting and she felt unconscious on the ground. So they took him to the hospital." That was John in Rome, but multiply this by 10 times.
I was just about to say, I know how that guy felt.
Yeah. So
I think John wants us to believe it was the snooze, but if you know John as well as I do, we definitely know that.
No, we believe John. This is a new issue, and I'm sure that soon FIFA and all the other sports federations will start looking at that very closely.
So what's the clinical presentation then for a dentist listening here and they think that someone is using snus? What would you see clinically?
To be honest, I didn't have a big number of players that they use snus, and I didn't see different manifestations in the oral cavity. But I would expect higher incidence in periodontal diseases, caries maybe, but periodontal diseases definitely. I'm not talking, of course, about the aesthetic point of view, discoloration of teeth, etc. But I would expect first the periodontal tissues to be affected.
Yeah, they seem to place it in your upper molars, the buccal of your upper molars. So I presume if there's anything going to present, that's where we'll see stuff being presenting. So maybe the upper right 6, 7 is a lot more perio than the rest of the mouth. That might be an indication, but it'd be really interesting because it does seem to be becoming very popular and does seem to be something that's been used widespread. So it'd be interesting to see how we can identify it and what long term, how the sports federations and stuff address it as well.
Usually the sports federations and their medical committees, they respond fast to medical issues. So that's why I said I have the impression that soon, or one by one, the sports federations, medical committees will start taking a look at this.
So let's cheer ourselves up. What about Dusseldorf? We're all looking forward to Dusseldorf. What Umar wants to know is, where's the party at?
Where's the party at?
Well, first of all, I want to know the conference is at the airport, right? So if you can let the people know when, it is. When is the conference, Thanos?
Yes, the conference is 21, 22 of November this year. The reason why we do it in the airport, there's a very big conference center at the airport, but the real reason is that we want people to land in Düsseldorf and go straight to the party, not missing any time with buses and subway, etc. So, so that will be easier for them. And the party starts Friday morning and ends Saturday night. This is a 2-day party. I honestly, I think that will be a great conference. I'm saying this all the time about the conference we organized. That was great in Edinburgh, actually. Unforgettable in Edinburgh. And I think it will be the same in Düsseldorf. That will be 2 days full scientific program from morning until early in the afternoon. That will be EFOSD and ECOSET, the European College of Sports and Exercise Physicians, running parallel sessions in both sports medicine and dentistry. Our scientific program as Sports Dentistry will include dentists from around the world, from South America, from Asia, India, Europe, you name it. They will give us their perspective and their progress and the scientific evidence about what we do. And our program is also including big number of sports physicians, very experienced sports physicians from FIFA medical centers, isokinetic centers that will give us their perspective as sports physicians. We as dentists, we need to know the medical issues of the players. We need to learn their medical issues the same way as sports physicians need to learn the basic of oral health issues. And I think that will be great. Of course, the party will continue on Friday. After the first day of the conference, we're planning to have a gala dinner. We haven't decided yet if that will be with formal dress or just dressed up as, in Rio de Janeiro. We'll see about that.
Umar
I know
wants
John
to know,
will show
can
up.
he wear his kilt? Is
Sorry?
Umar allowed to wear his kilt?
Kilt. Yes. Actually, yeah, I heard this. I don't know if it's true. We have a few months to find out. But one thing I regret from Edinburgh is that we haven't worn kilt.
Yeah.
Well, Thanos, if you want me to bring a kilt for you to Dusseldorf, you just send me your waist measurements and I'll get one made for you, my friend.
All right. So, but the only condition you wear kilt as well.
Oh, I'll bring my kilt. My kilt's already packed. I've already got my Dusseldorf bag packed already.
I would like to see Joe with kilt.
Umar's probably wearing a kilt right now, even though it's an audio podcast.
Do you not know I wear my kilt to work? I actually work in my kilt every day. So.
No, actually, I would love to see John with kilt because one thing everybody who knows John knows one thing. John loves t-shirts. So imagine John with a t-shirt and kilt, tight t-shirts.
Tight t-shirt. That's what John loves.
We had a conference in Athens, 2021. I was freezing cold. And then we met in a restaurant in the center of Athens, very nice. And then John showed up with a t-shirt. I had two jackets and a scarf. And John showed up with a t-shirt. I said, okay. So, but I think Düsseldorf will be great. And of course, I will see the two of you in Düsseldorf. And I hope I will see, and I'm sure I will see a lot of friends and dentists from around the world. This is an opportunity. Apart from, this is one of the greatest things about this conference is that it's not just the scientific program and we learn a lot, all of us, is that meeting friends or making new friends from around the world, the party, of course. And this is the spirit of sports.
And this will be the 4th European Association for Sports Dentistry Conference. You're bound to be very proud for how everything is developed. I remember going to the first one in Paris. I'm sure you've noticed the development of the association. Is it what you thought it would be when you and Sophie first got together? Or how did you see it and where do you see the future?
Well, I had a conversation with Sophie a few months ago and she asked me the same question. Would you, Thanos, believe a few years ago that we would reach that point? And my honest answer was yes and no. No, I wouldn't believe that we would reach that point so far, that the E4SD and sports dentistry in general would be developing so fast in very, very solid base, based on scientific evidence, on publications, on research. We see universities getting involved with programs post and undergraduate. So we see all these things that makes me really, really very, very proud. Not because something I did personally, but because something that we did from the beginning. The beginning was just Sophie. Then you mentioned Paris in 2019. I was you, John, as well. Later on, I was Umer as well. So I see one collective effort and one collective work, so enthusiastic from dentists that they don't know each other at the beginning, and then they get to know each other. And I see this thing progressing and developing. And honestly, I feel something that it's difficult for me to describe, really. What I see the future, and I do believe that the future, the best is yet to come. Now, your question about the future, I see a more organized sports dentistry worldwide. We talked at the beginning of this podcast about the network. We need to pick up the phone or send a message to our fellow dentists in Indonesia or in Vancouver. The first is this. The second is that I see the near future of sports dentistry being developed in an academic level. The universities are getting interested about this specialty. And of course, I see also the third thing is the full integration of sports dentistry into the world of sports. We talked at the beginning also about the lack of dental screening within the medical screening, the medical file of the players. I think we're not far from the point that will be either mandatory or very common to do that. So all these things, all this development over the last 10 years make me very, very happy and proud. I'm very, very blessed to meet so many people, make friends, as I said, like you, John and Umer. We are in constant contact to organize conferences, to go to the conferences, or even to call each other when we have a difficult case to consult. So this is very, very special, difficult to describe.
Yeah, after the conference in Edinburgh, that really made us in the UK stand up and take notice and think, look what Thanos and Sophie have done. And then a few of us had a chat and said, we need to do something in the UK. And that's where the idea was born after it happened in Edinburgh. We thought we need to do something. And then obviously the UK one we did last year. And on top of that, it's just building and building. So, we have a massive gratitude to you, Thanos and Sophie, for firstly bringing it to the UK and doing it in Edinburgh. And for the people who were involved in organising that event, really made us stand up and take notice. And hopefully people who are listening to this, and like you said, in Vancouver or Indonesia or New Zealand or wherever, they're going to be like, do you know what? We can actually set up our own organisation. And if they do it, amazing. Get them involved, because the network of getting people together and building this family has to be the vision. And I think if we all can all pull in the same direction, because dentistry is a small world, sports dentistry is an even smaller world. So it's really important that we help each other out. Do you believe that too?
Yes, definitely. It happened at the beginning. The E4SD was formed by Thanos and Sophie. Yes, it's true. But the most important thing is that immediately after that, there is, as I said, there is John, Umar, Alessandro, Marcus, Stavros, Flavia, Maria. I can say 100 names easily over Europe. The development for dentistry, this is a collective work involving hundreds of dentists. I would say thousands, but regarding the E4SD, I know the dentists with their first and last name. They're all friends of mine. And we're talking about hundreds of dentists who spent over the last 10 years their valuable time and efforts and energy and ideas, just like you, both of you, and of course, many that could hear us right now. So they spend all their free time and energy and ideas on this project. And I think this is the real reason why we developed so far. 14 years ago, 13 years ago, if it wouldn't be Thanos and Sophie, I'm sure that a little bit later, that would be somebody else who would find out, okay, that was probably a matter of luck. What is not luck here, it is the development. And I said that is based on a very, very solid basis. the development of sports dentistry as a new science around the world.
I think you're not giving yourself enough credit, Thanos, because it's easy. It's easy to develop, not so much easy, but it's easier to develop within your country. So it's easy for us in the UK to develop the UK Sports Dentistry Association. It's not as easy to pull people from right across Europe together, from multiple countries together, which is what you and Sophie have started with the European Association of Sports Dentistry, and what we're now going to go to Dusseldorf, and the association is going to be the biggest it's ever been, with more countries involved than there ever has. Like, I think that's a massive achievement to be able to bring. It'd be different if you had set up a Greek sports dentistry and developed it, and Sophia set up a French and developed it independently. That's a little bit easier than trying to pull everybody from right across Europe together, which is what you and Sophie have achieved from that idea that all them years ago, that idea that you had, and look where it is now. And I think you're just not giving yourself enough credit. So don't worry, we'll buy you plenty of shots in Dusseldorf to celebrate.
Well
To celebrate.
Well, okay. I
I
take the challenge. I accept the challenge, but please, John, I know I wouldn't like me and Omar to go looking for you, falling again like you did in Rome, you know. So we want to have proper fun and not worry about where's John,
It's okay, Thanos. I'm gonna put an air tag on John so I know exactly where he is at all times. So don't worry.
Yes, that's a good idea.
That actually is a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah. So the tickets are available for Dusseldorf, Thanos?
Yes, everything is available. The registrations in our website, efsd.com and ecosafe25.com as well. For the sports physicians, the registration, we are still on the early bird registration period. I think we're going to keep it for a couple of months more. So, and we can see already the registration number and enthusiasm we have. I believe we will have more dentists from outside Germany than within Germany. In Germany, we have a very strong sports dentistry community. I didn't want to underestimate the participants from Germany. We will have a lot of German dentists, but I see the numbers and I see people that will travel from a lot of countries in Germany. So the registrations are on. The scientific program will be ready within 2 to 3 weeks. So with all the speakers and the topics. And what is new this time is that we have opened the call for abstracts registration platform. It means that any dentist or sports professional other than dentist can send an abstract and make his own oral presentation in the scientific program, within the scientific program, or present a poster. And this is something, and we do have already a lot of submissions of oral presentations. So I think this will be very interesting. And of course, to all those who are listening now, I would tell them that I'm looking forward to welcoming them in Düsseldorf. Me, Omar, and of course, John. I don't know about John, what he will be, but me and Omar definitely we're going to be there working with them.
Now, for research purposes, I did do a trip to Dusseldorf last year, and I found some very good spots. So there's a very good Cuban restaurant that you might find me in.
Nice.
Or a few other spots.
Yeah.
So we do proper preparations and research before we choose the location of our conference.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we'll definitely put the description for the links for getting the tickets. So we'll have that in the description of the podcast. And I've been told, Thanos, that we're allowed to bring the podcast to Dusseldorf and do a podcast there. Is that right?
This is absolutely right. That would be great to have a podcast over the 2 days of the conference. That will be a lot of fun, and I hope we do it. I think we're going to do it. And the other thing is, of course, the podcast will start to be disseminated and through the channels of E4SD in social media. So, because this is what you said at the beginning, Umar, is a unique opportunity to connect to dentists all over the world. So this is very important, the communication.
Should we just book a table in the Cuban restaurant to do the pod in then, should we?
Yes.
Yeah. So sounds like a good plan.
That should be also with a camera because, we need, we're gonna be in Kilt, so I think we
I've
the
got you
the
covered,
viewers will
Thanos.
be
I've got you
interested.
covered. Yeah, don't you worry. You can't go back on your word now. I'm bringing one for you. I'm telling you.
All right. Okay. I remember my friend Oksar from Saudi Arabia. I've been in Saudi Arabia with John
Yeah.
last April, and he was calling me before the conference, telling me, you know what, I bought for you a traditional, outfit. And he was running after me to wear it. So I think I'm not gonna escape to wear kilt in the Düsseldorf as well.
No, I don't think you'll escape the kilt. That's great. I think that's a great way to finish. Thanos wearing a kilt in Dusseldorf.
Perfect.
That's it.
Great way
You
to
can put it
finish
as
the
a
pod.
title.
So thanks very much, Thanos, for coming on and giving us a bit more of an insight into your background and also to explain more about the European Association for Sports Dentistry. As again, hopefully there's plenty of dentists that are listening to this pod that maybe didn't know you as well and maybe didn't know the European Association for Sports Dentistry well, and this will give them a great opportunity to learn a bit more and hopefully excites them enough that we'll see them in Dusseldorf.
Perfect. Thank you.
We want to
Go
encourage
ahead.
people to reach out to Thanos as well. So, Thanos, thank you very much for taking the time. That was really informative. There's a lot of stuff there actually I didn't know as well. So it was great to hear that firsthand. And we look forward to seeing you in Germany.
In a kilt and doing a shot.
In a kilt. Exactly. Thank you. Thank both of you, and we'll see each other in Düsseldorf with a kilt. Definitely.
See you.
Thanks very much, Thanos.
Thanks very much, Thanos.
Thank you.
We are delighted to have Ionate as a sponsor for the Sports Dentistry podcast. Are you looking for a water bottle that's built to keep up with your active lifestyle? Look no further than Ionate, the totally leak-proof water bottles with triple lock technology to prevent spills no matter where you're headed. With a simple one-touch opening mechanism, you can sip on the go without hassle. Plus, Ionate's sleek, modern designs are not only functional but can be personalized just for you. Made from high-quality steel, these bottles are easy to clean and best of all, they're sustainable. From 320 mils to 1200 mils, Ionate has the perfect size for you, whether you're just out for a jog or going on a long hike. And it doesn't stop at water bottles. Ionate also has travel mugs and flasks to keep your drinks just right wherever you are. Ionate is the official water bottle supplier to the British and Irish Lions on their tour to Australia this summer, and are the official water bottle supplier to the NFL, so you know you're getting the best. I have been using their bottles for a long time now and cannot recommend them highly enough. So head over to www.ionate.co.uk to get your hands on the best bottles in the business, bar none. Now back to the pod.
That was great chat there with Thanos, Umir. You know that what they have built in the European Association for Sports Dentistry, which was just from a conversation, was just from Thanos saying to Sophie, that we need to work together to help the athletes. And they've been able to build this association that is bringing all the countries together from Europe together and networking. And that's what we've spoke about in this pod. We've spoke about how we want to try to bring the sports dentistry world together. And they've really been able to achieve that in Europe.
Yeah, isn't it amazing that one person from Greece and one person from France connected over a common theme, and then they've built it to where it is now. It was a fascinating story to hear from Thanos there, and they had the mutual player, which kind of led them to the introduction. And I think he spoke very well. He spoke about his time kind of from the start to where it is now and how they're looking to expand. I think a lot of listeners will find it quite fascinating that he's got his own practice in Athens, focused on cosmetic laser and sports dentistry and what he does and how he's involved with a lot of football mainly.
Yeah, so soccer seems to be football. It's hard to know because we're going international anymore. It's going international. And I've lived in places where football means completely different things. And this is why I'm stuck sometimes. It's a little bit like Byron when we're saying hockey a lot, but really to us it's ice hockey. But football, so like where I was brought up, football is like Gaelic football. Football, obviously worldwide, England, UK is soccer.
Yeah, I think that's
Brisbane for a while, and football there was rugby league. So if you were talking about football, they meant rugby league. And then down in Melbourne, if you said football, it meant Aussie rules. And if you went to Sydney and said football, it meant rugby union. And then if you go to America and say football, it means American football. So So, like, if we're going international, we may have to start calling football soccer because it's quite a confusing term when you think
Yeah,
about it
no,
like that.
yeah, that makes sense. I think even if you say football, soccer, people need to understand because that term can be used in so many different ways. So yeah, you're making it clear. That's all that matters.
Yeah. So soccer seems to be, and I think soccer, as we mentioned in the pod, the way the players transfer a lot more than they would say in the likes of rugby or other sports that be. I know, like I would support a lot of Irish Gaelic football teams, and you only play for that area that you live, so there's a lot less movement about of players, and you have a bit more time, like long term. Like some of the players I've been working with now for over a decade, and they'll always play for that team. But once you start moving into other sports, rugby's there's not as much of a transfer. There is players transferring, but maybe not to the same volume that would transfer out of a team as compared to soccer, where you could see half a team transfer in some soccer teams. And I think that's when we talk about this network of sports dentists, the sport like soccer is going to be so important, where you have this athlete might move around to 3 or 4 different countries or cities in a short period of time, depending on transfers and how he's playing. If he's starting to play well, he might get picked up by a team in a better league. If he's starting to play poorly, he may get dropped off and have to move clubs to a team in a lower league. And there just seems to be a lot more movement of athletes, and therefore that's more of a challenge for the sports dentist to be able to support that athlete.
It's a challenge for a sports dentist, but it's also a challenge for the athlete themselves. There was a recent transfer that broke the internet with Luka Doncic when he went to LA Lakers, and he didn't even know he was going. He was basically just told, from my understanding, is that you're going to Los Angeles, see you later, and nobody had an idea what's going on. So can you imagine the sports staff, the medical staff that might be thinking, "Oh, we're going to do this rehab, or from a dentist point of view, we're going to do this restoration," and he's on the plane to LA, and he's
Yeah.
gone, and just goes to show you just don't know what's going to happen with the athletes. You just have to assume that they're going to be there, and if anything changes, then it's out with your control, and you just have to pass the level of care to the next clinician.
Yeah, definitely. So it's really important. That's where digital dentistry might help as well. I talked about having that dental record that's a little bit like the medical record that will travel with the player. Obviously, he raised his concerns that might be a reason then why a player might get a transfer, but it's not the reason why we'd want to include it. We'd want to include it to ensure that the best standards are being given to that player when it comes to their oral health. So that's maybe something that we can develop as sports dentists to look at that record. I know last week when we spoke to Byron, he spoke that his screening, even of the screening of that player in that pre-season of the 75, it would go into their medical record. So maybe they're maybe at a situation where everything goes into the medical record, but it may not have that negative impact where it might impact whether a club's going to take that player or not. So it's maybe something to look at. Can we develop that where for these sports where players will travel a lot, that is very easy then to move that oral health, their oral health support from the sports dentist. If it's easy then to move that to make sure that the continuation of cure goes with them.
Do you think players could potentially then start refusing oral health examinations if they feel that a deal's going to break through? Because, if somebody's going to be getting transferred and they're going to go for a multi-million pound or dollar deal, but then they know that their oral health condition is poor, if they know that themselves, and they might say, actually, well, I don't want to be scanned, I don't want to be assessed, because I know that they're not going to say this out loud, but I'm just saying in their head that they might think that actually I don't want to be assessed because this deal's going to break through and I'm never going to get that opportunity to get that big deal. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. Definitely think it's a possibility. It might be on the timing. So say if it's a player that they're up for contract negotiations or they're in that uncertainty of whether they're getting the transfer or not, they could very it could be strategy from them to say, like, well, I don't want this information out there just in case. They might be okay, say if they were getting a transfer and the transfer goes through and they know they're going to be there for the next few years, then they might be okay, well, it's not going to have an impact, so I'm happy enough to do it now. But we might find that at a certain timing, if if it is a scenario where there does seem to be a trend or that there's an influence from their oral health having an impact on whether they're getting picked up at a club, players will switch. Players will tune into that quite quickly, and they'll say, "Well, it's not my advantage here to have an oral health screening at this time." Like I can see that being an issue, and that's a situation we want to avoid because, as you said, the mouth is very forgiving, and a lot of things can be treated quickly and get them back to a good, healthy scenario. So it shouldn't have an impact, and it comes down to education and ensuring that both the decision makers and the player themselves understand that.
But you know that the athletes, their careers are so short. If somebody's waving that amount of money in front of you, it'd be hard to not try and disguise or cover up something, though, surely.
Yeah, definitely. And I have an example from the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow 2014. One of the Northern Irish boxers, we're quite familiar with him now, Paddy Barnes, he won gold. And he had 4 fights, and we were part of the athlete medical team at venue. So he would have got the pre-medical before each fight done by the governing body, EBA at the time. And then after each bout that he would have had, he went into the medical tent, and the doctor from the athlete medical team at the venue would have done post-bout examination on him to make sure he was okay. So he had 4 fights and the space in between. So 4 fights in a week, so the day rest in between. And in the final, he won the gold. He came out of the ring. He went to do his last medical of the tournament. And the same doctor that had done the post-bout medicals all week was there, and he started asking the same questions, and he more or less was just ticking boxes because he had done it all week. He goes, "Do you have a sore head?" And he goes, "Yep." And he goes, "What? What do you mean, do you have a sore head?" He goes, "Oh, I have a sore head." He goes, "When did that come on?" He goes, "Oh, I got it after the first fight." And the doctor goes, "Well, I've been interviewing you all week or doing examinations with you all week, and you've said no all the time." He says, "Well, I wasn't going to tell you because you could have stopped me from boxing. But now that it's over and I've won the gold, I'm happy. I can tell you whatever I want." And so it could be a same scenario with the World Health Screens and transfers. So that was obviously the main thing, and his focus was to win gold. And even though he was starting to get headaches after his first fight, which would have been the round before the quarterfinals, he was going to suffer through and push through until he got that ultimately aim the gold, because especially at amateur levels, your funding depends a lot on the sort of medals you can win at certain stages to ensure that you're on the highest funding that's available. So that's an example where a player's hiding what could have been quite an important medical condition because they didn't want it to impact their ability to win and to get that financial funding that they would have needed for their next cycle into their next competition.
But you understand that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand it from a human point of view. I understand a bit what he or she is trying to do, but because they got one chance at it, you know. And if he was to say, "I've got a sore head," then yes, the medical staff could be like, "Actually, well, you know, this could lead to possibly concussion. It could lead to a bigger brain trauma, which could lead to, God forbid, something bad happening." So you can understand that. And also players who do HIAs, head injury assessments, they learn the questions, they learn how to possibly pass it as well, even though they may have some signs or symptoms of concussion. So athletes, they are smart. I mean, they're not there just to nod their head and say, "Yes, okay, you can't do this," or "You're not allowed to," and waving the finger at them. They are smart because they have to look after themselves ultimately, because their careers are so short, and it could lead to something bigger for them. Like Paddy Barnes, you said, they're getting the gold medal. Talking about the Commonwealth Games next year, Glasgow 2026, because Victoria had to pull out. So that's something for us to look forward to as well next year. And I've been doing a little bit of research on that. So I think there's going to be a lot of good things happening in Glasgow in the lead up to that. So hopefully we can build the pod to then, and maybe we do some in-person pods around the Commonwealth Games. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Plenty of time to build a pod today, and we're looking good. Got a sponsor on board. We've been to Vegas and back. I think all this traveling is getting tiring, but more, I think what we've got to do is bring it back. We'll bring it back to UK for the next one to give us a little bit of respite. Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right. And who better than somebody who's got an infectious personality, and who I heard speak last year at the UK Sports Dentistry conference, and she just oozed this persona, this confidence. and that she loved what she was talking about. Like, she literally loved it. And you can just see it in her face. I thought it was amazing. I just thought, wow, like that is, I just loved it. I thought she came across so well.
Yes, she was great to listen to. And also telling me stories about how she's been able to sneak her dog onto flights as well. So I'm looking forward to understanding that and seeing how she's been able to do that. So yeah, we've got another great guest coming up in the next pod, and we're bringing it back to the UK. So we'll get a wee bit of respite. Enough of this digital traveling.
It's starting to take shape now. It's starting to take shape.
Yeah, cool. Great. So that's another one done and dusted. So thanks very much for listening. And we'll look forward to the next guest, and hopefully you'll be able to join in and hear what we're talking about.
Yeah, we'll look forward to welcoming you back on the podcast, guys.